Hello guys, how are you? This is the video lesson number 1 for the week number 10. Thanks a lot for following all these 10 weeks. I know it's not easy to do it this way. Nevertheless, I think that based on everything that we have exchanged and what I have received from you, I think that we're doing well. So, push a little bit more. We're almost there, almost done. I know it's difficult, and we don't know much about the other semester, but let's try and finish this as properly as we can. Guys, I remind you one more time. I'm doing this video in advance, but I'm going to have a meeting with you, and I'm going to talk about deadlines and different things related to it. Remember that I invite you one more time to start working the assignments, having decided already your material, the text that you are going to select for your class, and as well as the population that you're going to use, if it's either high school, which grade, university students, elementary, whatever, right? Remember that this is a suggestion. In the end, if you want to do all of these assignments with a different text or something that is going to be different to the one that you're going to select in your lesson, you could do it. That's fine. It's totally up to you. But then that will imply more work, yes, because by the time that in which you have to select or to deliver, the final lesson, lesson plan, I mean. So you will have to change that, and it will be extra work. While if you do it step by step during each week, I think that you will be almost ready by the end of the semester, right? I remind you one more time that the video lessons will be shorter and shorter. I'm just going to give some general ideas on general possibilities based on studies material, and also of course my own experience. And the idea is that now you, let's say, have the possibility of implement that, being able to use it, to create it, to design it. That is like the most valuable thing, yes. That is what we can do in this subject. Let's say that by the end of the semester you're going to be able to have a prepared class already. But all of these step-by-steps in the selections, the background, the study guides, the literary criticism, the warm-ups, and today that we are going to deal with the approach to reading, is going to stay with you, so you can use it in the future to literary material or adapt it to some other things, right? So that is like the most important over here. Well, as usual, I am going to start the class by sharing with you a little poem. This is by Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, that, as many of you probably know, was a religious woman and nun that happened to be as well a writer, a poet, and that had a difficult time in different senses, because being a woman and being a nun and being a poet, with all these open, let's say, mental openness that she had in different senses in terms of what the roles of women could be, and what could be like some guilt of men, etc. Well, doesn't necessarily make her existence easy back then, but she was able to pull through. So I'm going to read this poem for you guys, this time is going to be more than just reading the poem, because we're going to use it for one part of the assignment of this week, okay? Well, by the way, I have decided to start giving the different activities, or leaving the different activities in only one assignment. So the assignment will have two parts, but there will be in the same assignment, okay? So the same thing. So it's going to be easier for you and also for me in terms of exploring the single file. Okay, I'm going to read it for you. Please pay close attention, and later on, when I'm describing the assignments, I'll let you know what it's all about. It goes like this. Hombres necios que acusáis a la mujer sin razón, sin ver que sois la ocasión de lo mismo que culpáis. Si con ansia sin igual solicitáis su desdén, ¿por qué queréis que obren bien si las incitáis al mal? Combatís su resistencia y luego, con gravedad, decís que fue liviandad lo que hizo la diligencia. I'm going to skip some of the verses over here. This is originally a longer poem, but I'm just going to read some of the most relevant ones for me in this case. ¿Cuál mayor culpa ha tenido en una pasión errada? ¿La que cae derrogada o el que ruega decaído? ¿O cuál es más de culpar, aunque cualquiera mal haga, la que peca por la paga o el que paga por pecar? Pues para qué os espantáis de la culpa que tenéis, queredlas cual las hacéis o hacedlas cual las buscáis. Dejad de solicitar y después con más razón acusaréis la afición de la que os fuere a rogar. Bien con muchas armas fundo que lidia vuestra arrogancia, pues en promesa e instancia juntáis diablo, carne y mundo. This is really one of her most famous poems, and it deals with this role of women, right? Of how women are usually criticized no matter what they do. Yes, and think about, like, locate yourself in the times of Sor Juana. Let's say that she puts these two extremes of either being morally relaxed somehow, like obeying to your instincts, somehow indulging in some self-compliance or the search for pleasure in different ways. I mean, of course, there is like a high sexual component over here of sexual liberty somehow, but also, let's say, in just very general romantic terms, but also in academics, but also in independence, right? So when women are like that, normally people condemn her and criticize them for being immoral, for being too relaxed, for being maybe easy, right? But then Sor Juana mentions again that if women go on the other side and they are very strict, let's say very prude, if they are not very social, if they are not really unfriendly or close to people or to men or to whatever, they are also criticized for this. They are accused of being maybe bitter, not really open, of not sharing with people. So it's difficult, no? And it's not fair to be subject of this criticism. There's even let's say a criticism as well of in the final part there's an allusion to even prostitution, no? Like from her point of view, which is Catholic and part of the church, so it is an activity that should be condemned completely and should be, let's say, out of any consideration, and it's a sin, right? But she's wondering, and this is a rhetoric question that actually she knows the answer for, but she's asking, like, okay, when there is like a client and a prostitute, both are being sinners, both are doing something inadequate according to her, let's say, religious formation, right? So both are doing something wrong, but who is like doing it worse? The one who offer her services, or the one who's paying for them, right? So there's a reflection over here between relationships of men and women, and there's even an invitation to accept women the way they are, yes, not like asking them to change or things like that, okay? So that was a poem, and well, part of the poem, as I mentioned, it's a little bit longer, but I just read a part of it, and part of the interpretation. Probably you're going to need this for the assignment, so take a look at it at this part of the video again or something when I explain that part, okay? Well, guys, so this week we're going to be concentrated into approaches to reading. As I mentioned before, we have already selected the material. We have already mentioned like what would be the background information that is necessary, if it requires literary criticism, if it requires, a lot of different things. Later on, we talk about the um, the warm-ups, something that was really important that we described last week, and talk about it, and we already produce it. And remember that everything should be connected. I mean, at least for this lesson, the warm-ups are always going to be in function of what we're going to do. It's not just any random activity, any random game. It must be something that is completely related to it, right? So, what are we going to do now? What are we going to concentrate on this week in the reading part? Okay, so warm-up was an occasion for introduction. Probably some of you selected or used a little bit of the text in the warm-up, and that's fine, okay? But here we're going to be completely concentrated into the reading of the text that you selected. So by this point, you must have already have a complete, let's say, be completely secure of, completely sure, sorry, of the text that you are going to select. Yes. So either is a part of your book. Yes. So let's imagine that you say in the previous, in the lesson plan, you say, okay, these kids should have read the whole book. Yes, and we are going to pretend that they have already read the whole book, or one chapter, or 2 pages, or whatever. Great, okay? But for the class itself, you have to make them read one part. Yes? So it's completely necessary that after the warm-up, well, I am doing it in this order. It's not necessarily in that way. You could propose certain changes, but I am doing it in the way that it's a little bit more reasonable for me. So you need to make them read, and that should be a part of the class in which they read the text that you selected. Yes, being 1 page, or a full chapter, or a full poem that takes, I don't know, 2 or 3 pages, or a fragment of a novel that takes 5 minutes, or 8 minutes, or 4 minutes, or whatever, okay? So they do need to read, or to somehow, because we have some options different from reading. I'll mention a couple of them in a moment. You have to make them read, or somehow make them aware of the full text of the material that you have selected. Okay, that is what you're going to do. So there are different ways in which you can do this. Yes, there's simply the traditional way in which you can give them the material and they will read it, and that's it. Yes, and sometimes that is the best approach. Yes, I cannot somehow criticize that, or I cannot say that it is a wrong thing to do, or that it shouldn't be done, because actually, and I say it myself, and I think that in many cases, the simplest approach is the best. Yes, so simply give them a photocopy, or show them on the screen, and they will read, and they are in silence, and that's it. Yes. So, guys, if you're able to do it in that way at some point in your actual classes, and people are concentrated enough, and people are somehow interested enough, and they don't lose their attention for a certain span of time, do it. That's great. Yes, it seems really quiet. It seems like it's not very active. But if it's possible, do it, okay? But that is not what we're going to do in this lesson plan. Why? Because you already know it. Yes, you already know how to do it, and you don't need any sort of experience to do it, and it's quite easy. Yes, just you need the conditions. That is the difficult thing. You need a group that could accept that and could take it without much trouble, right? So here we're going to see some other methodologies, possibilities in which you can present this text, right? So I'm going to read them, and I'm going to mention them. I have them over here just in a list about, as I mentioned before, certain things that I have studied in the past, or certain things that I have employed in my own classes, and that may be quite good, right? Especially for certain ages, yes, especially for those kids that require, that have a shorter attention span, that maybe uh, do not find so attractive just reading and, well, directly during using the traditional method. So probably you can use it, or you can do it in different ways. Let's start with the first one. I put it first over here because I actually think it's quite good. I like it. I enjoy it myself, and I think that some of the students that I have used it with have enjoyed it as well, right? You have to be aware that there are people who are always going to hate whatever you do, and that's fine. That's part of being a teacher. So don't cry, don't discourage. You could be the funniest of of teachers, and then you will be criticized for being too fun and asked to be more serious, right? Or you can have like 1,000 games, and then parents will complain that you're just playing and they're learning. So try to find a balance, and that is going to be part of getting to know your groups. So the first one, as I mentioned, is the reading race. This is quite interesting. So there are different ways to use it. In my case, what I do is that I post around the classroom 5, 6, 7 different readings. Yes, all of them different, and that's a possibility. Now, in this case, what you can do is that as you're somehow using a single material, so what you can do is to divide that chapter, or divide that tale, or divide that poem in little parts. Yes, so if it's a poem, you can put different stanzas, yes, around the classroom, or if it's something more narrative, so it can be paragraphs, right? Let's imagine that you're dealing with a comic book adaptation, so around the classroom you can find different pages of the comic books, or vignettes, or things like that, right? So the idea, as you can get it by the name reading race, is that people go around like running around, reading the material as fast as they can, and then go to the next, right? You can do several things with this, right? So again, I share my experience. Normally what I do is to put all these different texts. I give them questions, but I don't tell them to which question correspond each text. Yes? So I don't give them like numbers, and I don't say like this is for this one and this is for that one. So for example, in order to answer the question number 5, they will need to read the number 1. Yes, the paper number 1. And that's it. So they go around reading, and let's say there's kinesthetic elements such as the reading, such as the running, like going around and moving. And also there is a mental agility component, because you have to read them all. You have to skim a lot. Yes, just to say, okay, yes, this corresponded to this question. No, okay, so I run to the other one. It must be the next or the other, etc. Right? So it may be fun somehow for some. And it boosts a lot of different abilities in this case, and at the same time you're doing what you need, that is that they read the material, right? You can have them run the whole class around. Well, with classes that are not so big, that might be a good idea. Yes, I don't know, I have done it perfectly with all the class, with groups up to 20, 22 students, right? But when the group is too big, what I recommend is that you give them functions, right? So for example, you have them divide in groups of 5 people if they are 40, for example, like in our beloved Colombian schools, public schools, and then, I don't know, 2 of them divide to read all the papers. The other ones might be the ones writing the answers, right? So that will also imply communication, orality, yes? So some of the other ones may be just in charge of writing the answers. And yes, you divide like the functions in different ways, so it's somehow a little bit more manageable, because 40 people running around pushing each other, it may be more trouble than worth, right? So that reading race is something that you can do, right? Also, you can do that like taking turns. Yes, okay. First go the group number one, try to read as many as you can and answer as many questions as you can. And you time it, and I don't know, you give them 2 minutes, and then the next, and the next, and the next. But that is not so recommendable, right? Especially with groups that have problems of discipline, because basically you will have only one group working and the other ones watching, and that doesn't work as well, right? So you can do that either when you have small groups or when you have very disciplined groups. That is not normally the case, but I'm giving you this idea, so maybe you can try and do that. Okay, so that's one possibility. Okay, now we have another methodology over here, another possibility, that is the jigsaw reading. Pretty simple, right? You take the test that has some sort of order, and you put it into pieces, you cut it out, and you give them in disorder, right? So basically they have to read the whole thing, make sense out of it, and give you like a correct order, right? So they have to organize it. This works usually well in groups. Let's say that if you divide the group in five, with 5 members, I mean, so try to have at least one piece for each one of them. So let's imagine that it's a tail, so you cut and paste. So you cut the tail and gave them to them, right? So at least everybody can do everything at the same time, and after they require also to exchange and read it and organize it. This works best if the order is not too obvious. Yes, if we don't have like words such as in the beginning, then next, finally. Yes, because in that case, people are not going to even read. Oh, this is the first one, and the ones that says finally, that's it. And only the 2 or 3 the guys in the middle are the ones like doing homework. Well, homework is just a figurative term. Doing the task, right? And we don't want that. So that's one thing, right? That you can do. So try to make it a little bit less evident, and it's going to work in that way. Now, it really depends on needs and abilities. We have already talked about that. If you think that making it too difficult will frustrating too much, well, maybe you can use this technique of having pointers that are really evident, such as first, next, etc. Like the story has those words, or those transitional words. So that's a possibility, right? But that's really up to you. I have actually tried once with an actual puzzle, right? So let's say that I put the text, and then I look online a program that make a puzzle out of any image that you put. So I put it in that way, and then I cut it out in the shape of an actual real puzzle, and they had like this double thing, no? This double task that was putting the puzzle together. That I think that it's something that you probably have never done. Sorry, that it's putting a puzzle of text. Yes, probably you have done it with an image, with a drawing or something like that, with a photograph, but not with a text, which makes it a little bit difficult as well, right? And then once it is completed, so they can read it, right? So that's another possibility. Again, you have to verify those different things about the level and their needs, and how tolerant are they to frustration, and if they have manifested some sort of specific rejection, well, different things, right? So that's it. We have talked about two different things: reading race, jigsaw reading. So we're going to stop over here, and I will finish, I guess, on the next video with the other techniques or methodologies or ideas that I can share with you. Okay? So thanks a lot. See you in the next video. Bye bye.